Have you ever had one of those moments where everything seems organized? Your flight on time, your family excited for you, then someone behind the counter gives you a very strange look?
I remember smiling at my phone in the boarding line, rereading my sister's text for probably the 10th time. You deserve this trip, Esther. No stress this time. And honestly, for once, it actually felt true. The airport was calm, my flight was on time, and after one of the hardest years of my life, I was finally headed to London for a job opportunity I'd been chasing for months. I had my coffee, my passport, my boarding pass, everything perfectly organized. Even the gate agent had been friendly with the passengers ahead of me, joking with them while they boarded first class. So when I stepped forward and handed her my ticket, I wasn't nervous at all. But then, her smile disappeared. She looked down at the screen, frowned slightly, and called another employee over without saying a word. At first, I honestly thought it was nothing. Maybe the scanner froze or my seat had changed. Airports are chaotic. Systems glitch all the time. So I just stood there, smiling awkwardly while people behind me rolled their suitcases forward, inch by inch. The second employee leaned over her monitor, and the two of them started whispering quietly. I couldn't hear the words, but I noticed something strange immediately. Neither of them looked at me anymore. It was like I'd suddenly become a problem sitting on a screen instead of a person standing right in front of them. I adjusted the strap on my carry-on and tried to stay calm. "Is everything okay?" I asked. The gate agent finally looked up. Her name tag said Denise. A minute earlier, she'd been laughing with another passenger about airport food. Now, her expression was completely flat. "This ticket isn't valid," she said. I blinked. I actually let out a small laugh because the sentence didn't even register at first. "That can't be right," I told her. "I checked in online this morning." "I'm just telling you what the system says." Behind me, boarding continued. The scanner beeped every few seconds as passengers walked past us onto the jet bridge. A businessman in an expensive navy coat stepped around me with an irritated sigh, like I was blocking his path. Denise immediately smiled at him and said, "You're all set, sir." That was the first moment something felt wrong. Not broken, not confused. Wrong. Because she hadn't rescanned my boarding pass. She barely looked at it at all before sliding it back across the counter. I picked it up slowly. My name was still there. My flight number was correct. My seat assignment, 4A, hadn't changed. Then I noticed the older businessman glance down at his own boarding pass as he walked by. 4A.
If that guy already has her seat, why are they acting like she's the problem here?
My stomach tightened instantly. And before I could even process what I'd just seen, Denise looked directly at me and said, "Ma'am, I need you to step aside." I wish I could say I immediately argued with her, but honestly, I was too confused to react. I stepped to the side of the counter while the boarding line kept moving around me like nothing unusual was happening. Families, business travelers, couples dragging matching suitcases. Everyone scanned their passes and disappeared down the jet bridge while I stood there holding mine in my hand, trying to understand how a confirmed seat could suddenly become invalid. Denise didn't acknowledge me again for almost a full minute. She just kept boarding passengers with that same polished airline smile, like our conversation had already ended. Every few seconds, I glanced at the departure screen above the gate, half expecting my flight number to disappear or change. But it stayed there exactly the same, on time, boarding. I leaned closer to the counter. "Can you at least tell me what happened?" Without looking up, Denise replied, "There's a system issue connected to your reservation." "What kind of issue?" "I don't have additional information." The answer felt rehearsed, cold. And then I noticed something else. She still hadn't scanned my boarding pass again. Instead, she was typing manually into her computer while occasionally glancing toward the businessman who had walked past me earlier, the one with my seat number. A younger gate employee approached her quietly and whispered something I barely caught. "That seat already cleared." My chest tightened. "What does that mean?" I asked immediately. Neither of them answered me. The businessman was already near the jet bridge entrance now, talking on his phone casually, completely unconcerned. I could see his boarding pass in his hand again for just a second as he adjusted his coat. 4A, my seat. I stepped closer to the counter, this time firmer. You gave my seat away? Denise finally looked directly at me again, but there was no apology in her face, no hesitation. You've been removed from this flight, ma'am. I froze. The words hit harder than I expected. Removed? I repeated. For what? System issue. That was it. No explanation, no offer to rebook me, no concern that my luggage was already on the plane or that I had an international connection waiting in London. Just 2 words repeated like I wasn't worth a real answer. People nearby had started listening now. I could feel it. A woman standing behind the rope barrier stared at me with open curiosity, while another passenger shook his head impatiently like I was causing a scene. The humiliation started settling in deeper than the anger. Because in that moment, they had all the power, and they knew it. I looked down at the boarding pass in my hand one more time, then placed it carefully on the counter in front of Denise. Keep it, I said quietly. Then I picked up my bag and walked away. I made it maybe 20 steps before I heard a scanner beep sharply behind me, then sudden silence. And a voice I recognized instantly saying, much louder this time, "Wait, where did she go?" The panic in her voice didn't sound professional anymore. It sounded scared. I kept walking. At first, I told myself I wasn't going to turn this into some dramatic airport confrontation. If they wanted to throw me off the flight without explanation, fine. I'd go to customer service, rebook somewhere else, maybe call the airline later and fight it afterward. But then the overhead speaker crackled above the terminal. Passenger Esther Coleman, please return to gate 14 immediately. I slowed down. A second announcement came less than 30 seconds later. This time, the voice sounded tighter, rushed. Esther Coleman, return to the gate immediately. People sitting near the charging stations looked up from their phones. A little kid pointed toward me because I'd instinctively stopped walking at the sound of my own name. My stomach twisted. Something had changed. I moved toward a seating area near a large window overlooking the runway and sat down far enough away to watch the gate without being obvious. From there, I could still see Denise behind the counter, and she was panicking. Not mildly stressed, panicking. The polished attitude she'd had earlier was completely gone. She kept talking rapidly to a supervisor who had suddenly appeared at the gate. Another employee was typing frantically into a terminal while glancing around the seating area like they were searching for someone dangerous. Then I saw the businessman. He'd been stopped before boarding fully. He stood near the jet bridge entrance, arguing with another airline employee, his face red with irritation now instead of confidence. That's when I realized this wasn't a random mistake anymore. A young gate employee, the same one who'd whispered to Denise earlier, spotted me from across the terminal and hurried over. She looked nervous before she even spoke. "Miss Coleman?" she asked softly. "You need to come back to the gate right now." I stared at her. "Why?" She hesitated. "There's an issue with your ticket." I almost laughed. "Yeah, I noticed." "No," she said quickly, lowering her voice. "I mean a serious issue." For the first time since this started, I felt something colder than anger settle into my chest. "What kind of issue?" I asked. The employee glanced back toward the gate before answering carefully. "When your boarding pass was scanned," she said, "it triggered a security escalation." I froze. "Why would my ticket trigger security?" She swallowed hard. "Because," she whispered, "your reservation wasn't supposed to be removable." For a few seconds, I just stared at her. The noise of the terminal faded into the background. The rolling suitcases, boarding announcements, people talking over coffee, and all I could focus on was that sentence. Your reservation wasn't supposed to be removable. I stood slowly. Gripping the handle of my carry-on tighter than I realized, I asked, "What does that even mean?" The employee shook her head quickly. "I can't explain it here. They just need you back at the gate." Need. Not want. Not request. Need. That alone told me the balance of power had shifted. When I walked back toward gate 14, the atmosphere was completely different from 10 minutes earlier. Boarding had stopped entirely. Passengers stood crowded near the ropes, looking annoyed and confused, while airline staff avoided eye contact with everyone. And Denise looked nothing like the woman who had dismissed me. Her face had gone pale. The moment she saw me approaching, she straightened immediately and whispered something urgent to the supervisor beside her. The businessman near the jet bridge looked furious now, demanding answers while another employee blocked him from re-entering the aircraft. As soon as I reached the counter, a man in a dark airport security blazer stepped forward. Calm voice, serious expression. "Ms. Coleman?" I nodded carefully. "I'm with Corporate Travel Security. May I see your identification?" I handed him my passport while every passenger nearby pretended not to watch. The humiliation from earlier was still burning in my chest, but now it was mixed with confusion. The security officer compared my ID against information on a tablet, then looked back at Denise. "Who authorized the reassignment?" he asked. No one answered immediately. That silence told me everything. The officer turned the tablet slightly toward another supervisor, and for a brief second I caught a glimpse of the screen. My reservation details were outlined in red with multiple warning notices underneath them. Then I heard one phrase clearly: "Protected Executive Travel Profile." I frowned instantly. Executive? That made no sense. I worked in healthcare administration, not corporate finance or politics. I wasn't some VIP traveler. The officer finally looked back at me. "Ms. Coleman," he said carefully, "your booking carried automated audit protections. Any unauthorized changes to your seat assignment were flagged immediately." My mind jumped backward all at once. The disappearing seat assignment on my app earlier. Denise typing manually instead of rescanning my pass. The businessman somehow ending up in 4A before I'd even been officially removed. This wasn't an accident. Denise suddenly spoke up, her voice tighter now. I was trying to accommodate a loyal customer. The security officer didn't even look at her when he replied. By removing a confirmed passenger illegally? And just like that, the entire gate area went silent. Nobody spoke for a moment after that. Not Denise, not the businessman, not even the passengers crowded around the gate pretending not to listen. The silence felt heavier than the arguments had. The corporate security officer finally turned toward me fully, his tone calmer now. "Ms. Coleman, we're trying to determine exactly how your reservation was altered." Altered. Not canceled. Not glitched. Altered. That word settled everything. Because up until then, some part of me still wanted to believe this had been incompetence, a technical failure, bad communication, anything except someone intentionally deciding I mattered less than another passenger. But that's exactly what had happened. The supervisor pulled Denise aside a few feet away, though everyone nearby could still hear pieces of the conversation. Apparently, the businessman had missed his original connection earlier that afternoon and demanded a first-class seat on my flight. When none were available, Denise manually reassigned mine instead of denying him boarding, and she almost got away with it. The only reason the situation exploded was because my reservation had been attached to a protected corporate travel account through my sister's company rewards program. Neither of us even knew those bookings carried executive-level monitoring protections. But the second Denise officially scanned my boarding pass after I walked away, the airline system detected unauthorized overrides tied directly to her employee credentials. That was the moment the panic started, because suddenly there was a digital trail, a real one. The businessman started arguing louder near the jet bridge, insisting he didn't know anything about the reassigned seat, but nobody looked convinced anymore. An airline employee eventually escorted him off to the side while passengers openly stared at him the same way they'd stared at me earlier. Funny how quickly public embarrassment changes direction. Meanwhile, Denise looked like she might cry. Not because she felt bad for humiliating me, not because she'd nearly stranded me before an important international trip, but because she'd been caught. That changed everything. One older woman sitting near the gate shook her head and quietly told me, "I knew something felt off when they pulled you aside." I appreciated the kindness, but honestly, it barely registered. My adrenaline was crashing now, leaving behind this weird mixture of anger, relief, and exhaustion. Eventually, the supervisor returned and apologized more times than I could count. They offered me hotel accommodations, flight vouchers, lounge access, compensation, every corporate apology package imaginable. But the thing I remember most is what I said back. "It wasn't the seat," I told him. "It was how easy it was for all of you to act like I didn't matter." He didn't have a response for that. The next morning, they rebooked me on another direct flight to London in an upgraded seat. This time, every employee at the gate knew my name before I even handed over my passport. Nobody questioned my ticket, nobody smirked, nobody asked me to step aside. As I boarded the plane, I looked once at the scanner before handing over my boarding pass. The agent scanned it carefully. A green light flashed instantly. "Welcome aboard, Miss Coleman." And for the first time since this whole nightmare started, I finally believed I was actually getting on the flight.
It's weird how people can think you don't matter when they know no one important is watching. So how often does things like that happen with no one noticing it? Let me know in the comment section.